In this lecture, you're going to learn about conditional rendering. Now, to help us focus only on a single thing, I'm going to temporarily clean up this code. So in the render method, we don't need the span and the button. Let's delete those. Also, we don't need these two helper methods in the class either. So let's focus on something really simple. So we have an array of items, and we're rendering that in a list. Now here's the new requirement. If this array has at least one element, we want to render that array in a list. Otherwise, we want to display a message like there are no tags. How can we implement this? Well, once again, in JSX, unlike Angular, we don't have if and else because JSX is not a templating engine. So to render elements conditionally, we need to go back to our plain old JavaScript. Here's one way to implement this scenario. We can add a separate helper method like render tags. In this method, we can have our if and else statements. So if this.state, .tags, .length equals 0, we're going to return some text like there are no tags. And of course, instead of returning just plain text here, we could return maybe a paragraph. We're returning a JSX expression, which is a React element. So there are no tags. Or if you don't want to display anything, you simply return null. Okay? So this is the case for an empty array. Otherwise, we want to render the array using UL and LI elements. So I'm going to cut this code from here and simply return it in our method. Finally, in our render method, we add curly braces and call this .render tags. So depending on our state, this method will return either a paragraph or an unordered list with a bunch of list items. Pretty straightforward, right? Save the changes. Back in the browser, currently we have 3 tags, so we see them here. Now, back in the code, if I empty this array and save the changes, we get this message. There are no tags. There is also another technique for conditionally rendering content. Let me show you. So back in the code, here in our render method, just before rendering the tags, let's imagine we want to render a separate message based on a given condition. So we have only a single if statement without an else part, okay? So we can add our curly braces here, write the condition, let's say this.state, .tags, .length equals 0. If that's the case, we want to render an additional message. We add our logical AND operator here, and then whatever we want to render, we add that here. Let's say, please create a new tag. Save the changes, back in the browser. So here's our message, please create a new tag. This is rendered only if our array is empty. Now, let's investigate how this expression works under the hood. So here we're applying the logical AND operator between 2 values. The first value is the result of this expression, which is a Boolean. It's either true or false. And the second value is a string. In JavaScript, unlike other programming languages, you can apply the logical AND between non-Boolean values. So let's go back to the browser and open up the console. Here in the console, I'm going to write plain JavaScript code. If we type true and false, we get false. What if we type true and a string, like hi? What do you think we're going to get? We get hi. Here's the reason. When a JavaScript engine tries to evaluate this expression, it looks at the first operand. In this case, the first operand is true, so it will look at the second operand. The second operand is not a Boolean true or false, so the JavaScript engine tries to convert this into what we call truthy or falsy. An empty string is considered falsy. A string that has at least one character is truthy. So in this case, hi is considered truthy. So essentially we have 2 operands that are both truthy. In that case, our JavaScript engine will return the second operand. Let's take a look at another example. So true and high and a number. Once again, the first operand is truthy, so the evaluation of this expression will continue. The second operand is also truthy, so the evaluation continues. Now we get to the third operand. In JavaScript, number 0 is considered falsy. Any numbers but 0 is considered truthy. So once again here we have 3 truthy operands, and the result of this expression will be the last operand. So we get 1. So back to our render method. To conditionally render content, we can use the logical AND operator. First, we add our condition, then AND, and then whatever we want to render after comes here. It can be plain text or another JSX expression.